I'm Marie Vigourou.
I'm Jeremy Greer.
And this is Rude Eats, a delicious podcast where we sink our teeth into every episode of the show Hannibal.
My friends call me a killer if you're still hanging around. You spread all of these rumors that I am the guy who did all of these crimes. I thought you wanted me better, someone you wouldn't use. You said he must be a killer, so now when we talk I have anger issues. You said there's no encephalitis. Now we're knee deep in my broken psyche and you're eating my friend. You're a cannibal now. What me were you feeding to me at your dinner party? I'm a cannibal now. All I needed was a friend. Hannibal, you're a cannibal. How? Don't even try to pretend. Hey Hannibal, where's Abigail now? I know it's really Hannibal and you frame me for murder and feed me in the ear. I know it's really Hannibal and you smell my name right next to the ear. You could have been a real friend that taught me all about who I am. I thought you were a real friend, but honestly you're not. Knee deep in my broken psyche and you're eating my friend. Hug me or you're fitting to me at our dinner parties. All I needed was a friend. Don't even try to pretend. You fucked with my head and blame it on the fever. You suspect really up. You wonder why I let her back into our friends. You cut me and I did it. I had to tell the truth and I both knew you did it. I hate how that you changed me so much. I question myself. I hate how that you changed me so much. You can go to hell.
And we are back with season 2. A little bit of admin before we get into the main part of the episode. I think episode is going to come out pretty late compared to where we are now because we're
Yes.
recording so far ahead. But this past weekend, we did a little charity stream. My friends over at DuckFeed do it every year at the end of the year to raise money for trans kids, and we played some X-Files video games on stream for a couple hours, and I had a great time. I don't know about you, but I had a great time.
It was so much fun. I was actually kind of sad that we had to leave the game. I was like, no, but wait, we haven't found
We haven't found any more
we haven't found the
zombies.
thing.
We didn't do a damn thing in that video game. Like we did not accomplish anything besides walk around and like find some keys. That was that was just we were played as Mulder.
It was
and Scully.
hard.
It was a very difficult game. I could see myself getting into that, like sitting down on the couch and playing more of it. But on the stream, like maybe it was a little bit too slow. I think we had a lot of fun though. But if you happen to come out, listeners, if one of you came out to listen or to watch or to donate, I just wanted to thank you again. This is coming out so many months later, but it was on my mind. And also, part of the DuckFeed crew is a guy named Will who listens to this podcast and writes for the AV Club. And Will has been very, very nice. He mentions us every once in a while on his Twitter and everything that he likes the podcast. But he had some bones to pick with us, Mary. He had some issues.
Oh, please. What bones?
So apparently, and I think we've talked about this a little bit. Obviously, I'm really bad with names, and I think, especially for characters that aren't like super important, I don't really lock in on them. So our other guy that from the ERT team is a guy named Scott Thompson.
Yes,
who plays Jimmy Price in the show Hannibal, and also like was in Kids in the Hall. is this very popular sketch musician, right? Like he's a known dude, and it infuriates Will every time I call him the other guy because I'm just like, I don't remember this guy's name, I have no idea who he is, don't know what's going on, who knows, it's just the other guy, and it infuriates Will. So he had some bones to pick with us about that. So we're going to try to do our level best to name him Jimmy throughout this episode.
Actually, I started doing that because I'm like, no, his name is Jimmy. Hold on, and especially now I find that they're like giving him him a little bit more to play off of, and that they're using him a little bit more as the comic actor that he is. Like I find that he's more memorable so far this season than he has been in season 1, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Yeah. Will also said that it was the best podcast if you like dramatic irony, because essentially because I have to suffer through not being able to tell you things that are happening in the TV show Hannibal when I already know a lot about what's happening in the TV show Hannibal. But that's what makes the podcast good, everybody. The second thing I wanted to bring up right before we get started is this episode has some discussion of suicide in a variety of different ways. So I wanted people to have a content warning ahead of time before we get into the episode and talk about it. We're going to get probably pretty in depth with it.
Yeah,
I think that we're going to talk about like some real serious heavy stuff, maybe even some personal stuff. And if that can affect you negatively, definitely reach out to friends and family, reach out to us, whatever you got to do. Like, don't take the extreme measures. Always reach out. You're wanted and loved. And if that is going to affect you, you might want to skip this episode of podcast and Hannibal, because we're going to be talking about it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're talking about basically what happens on the screen, and we're going to be commenting on that. We're going to make a note also maybe to put some helplines and resources in the show notes.
Yes, I will do that.
Yeah. So take care of yourselves, everybody. Really, I'm dreading this episode a little bit, so no. Oh my god.
Well, let's unless you have something else you want to talk about, go ahead and tell everybody what episode we're covering.
Yeah, I just want to respond to the Will thing about the dramatic irony, because I think that's extremely true, because I'm transcribing the episodes, but like delayed, right? So I just transcribed episode 10 of season 1, and there's some moments where I'm just like, because there are things that you hint at that I didn't know would happen, but now that looking back, I know that they happen. And so sometimes I say stuff not knowing what's going to happen. And I can hear now your brain exploding.
Yes. Yes.
And it is really, really funny. So
my brain exploding is just like the sound that you hear when a bee orgasms its final orgasm, as Jimmy talks on the show. It's audible. It's audible to the human ears.
Audible to the human ear.
Yes. That's super gross. I'm sorry I said that. You're
like, I want to take it back. I want to take it back.
Edit it out.
No. Be proud of your hobbies, Jeremy. So today we are going to be covering Hannibal season 2, episode 4, Takiawase. I again did not look up how to pronounce this, which I should stop doing. The FBI is called in when a dead body is discovered, the skull converted into a beehive. Meanwhile, Beverly Katz finds a clue about the mural killer that sends her down a deadly path. This episode was directed by David Sowell. Yes. My God, what more is there to say? It was written by Brian Fuller and Scott Nimfero, and it aired on March 21st, 2014.
Yeah. And as often, Hannibal is named after a meal or a type of meal or a course within a meal, which has been the case. So takiawase are vegetables served with meat, fish, or tofu, and the ingredients are simmered separately. And I think we're going to focus in on simmered for this for this episode.
Yes. I am going to ask you all to type Takiawase in Instagram. And just be prepared to be delighted, because everything is just so beautiful. You can tell that it's like little tiny pieces there. And like you said, it's often simmered. And so it seems to often be served in a broth, in a very light broth. The colors are popping. Like, it's just like, I wanted to eat everything when I was looking that up. And if we focus in on the word simmer, and if you type that into Google, some of the definitions that you get is, the first one that you get is like about water, right? Or liquid, which is to stay just below the boiling point while being heated, which I kind of love here. And the second definition is to be in a state of suppressed anger or excitement. And I feel like this is what I watched Hannibal go through, not only in this episode, but really in the last couple of episodes. Like, he's kind of being brought slowly but surely to a boiling point with, you know, his frustrations over the court proceedings, with Bedelia escaping him. And in this episode, like, we're starting to see him like lose his access to will, and he's realizing that like somebody knows about him, right? And so I'd like for us to kind of look at this episode through the theme of anger, you know, like that idea of like red hot anger. And again, of course, fire and red being associated with Hannibal. Like I feel like this is going to be an interesting theme to kind of dig into.
Yeah, I think it is. But as I was reading through your notes last night, because I was thinking about how this is going to kind of tie into the show in various ways, and the simmer and the anger part, it reminded me of like the frog in the pot that doesn't know it's being cooked kind of thing, like the water, and that's kind of feels like what's happening with Beverly to an extent throughout this episode, where she's just continually like not realizing the amount of trouble she's in. And also like Chilton is the same way in this episode. Chilton makes some gaffes. I think that like it's almost like they want him to be eaten pretty soon. I think is what they're trying to do.
So true.
But even with our main characters, right? Like our main characters, as you mentioned, Hannibal is he just wants his plaything back. He just wants his will back, like, right? Like he wants that man. He got to have that.
He
man.
wants that man. Yeah.
And then Will
and Jack is looking into his pantry.
Jack is in his pantry. And Will is so. Like you could tell that there's a calm surface, and we kind of saw a visual metaphor of this in the last episode, where in the last shot we see him in his like memory palace fishing, and all of the dead bodies are flowing underneath the water. And I think that's a really good representation of his mental state in this episode, where he's very much trying to be calm, cool, and collected, but underneath he is literally simmering with rage because he knows that he does not belong in this situation. So it's gonna be a lot of fun going through this episode through this lens, I think.
Well, so the thing about anger is, and you said something that was really, really important to keep in mind here. Anger is like a manifestation of perceived injustice, right? Whether real or imagined. In the case of Will, it's very, very, very real, right? The injustice is there. For Hannibal, it's definitely more perceived than anything else, right? Because he's like, "How dare you cut off my access to my plaything?" That
I did. That I did.
Yes.
Yeah.
How dare the consequences of my actions catch up to me?
Yes. Well, with that, do you want to get to our beat by eat?
Absolutely.
So we're going to start off kind of where we left off in the last episode, which is Will's memory palace. He's fishing in the river, fly fishing, except this time he has a friend with him. He has young Abigail, who he's teaching how to tie a blood knot. I was curious, knots usually have some kind of lore attached to them. And I did just a bare amount of research on blood knots because I was like, well, they're calling it a blood knot. Is it just because it's called a blood knot? Yeah. But I couldn't find any lore on this whatsoever. I wanted lore on the blood knot, and it did not exist, so I'm very sad about it. But we have a repeat of the conversation that we had in season 1 when Abigail and Will go back to the hunting cabin, where he says, you know, your father taught you to hunt. I'm going to teach you to fish. And she says, isn't it the same thing? And he describes that he says that it's much harder to catch a fish after you catch it the first time because the fish knows about the hook. And he says there's this kind of tradition where you name the bait after something that you cherish. And the tradition goes that if you do that, then you will catch the fish. And she asked, you know, what did you name the bait? And of course he says Abigail. So literally making her a cherished bait to capture Hannibal, which, you know, we're in the 4th episode of season 2. It's kind of obvious that Will is trying to enact some sort of plan in order to catch Hannibal at what he believes is wrong, right? So him, in his mind, using Abigail as literal bait is, especially cherished bait, I think is beautiful and horrible at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, all of it is just so heartbreaking, to be honest with you. Like seeing Abigail again, I was like, oh my God, he's dreaming about Abigail. And it's kind of like, it's really nice to see this moment of tenderness between them, even if it is entirely like imagined. And one thing that it kind of made me realize is that like, Will knows that Abigail took a life, but he also doesn't know how much Hannibal conditioned her, right? Like he doesn't know the full extent of it. Although, to be honest, Fluffy, what's going on? Okay, sorry. It's snowing and they are going bananas right now. Like, it's just, my gosh, it's fine. Yeah, so he doesn't really know how much Hannibal has conditioned her, although I think that he would probably be able to make that deduction by now, but I just don't know if he really wants to like break that image that he has of her that's just like so sweet. And the fact that he's kind of hoping that she also cherished him, you know, like the hope, like using her as bait, as cherished bait, hoping that like she cherished him too. Like it's just so sad, like because he has no one at the moment.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just really sad. On the other hand, Jeremy, the fact that he's using her as bait is literally the same thing that Garrett Jacob Hobbs did.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's concerning to me. I'm concerned.
Well, and it relates a lot
concerned.
to, the trial that he's been going through, right? Even though we don't do trial stuff, but like one of the things that they said in the trial is that Garrett Jacob Hobbs got into his head and he couldn't get it to Garrett Jacob Hobbs out. And that still seems to be the truth. Like that's very much the truth. No matter what Hannibal did to him later, no matter, how they medically gaslighted him and didn't treat his encephalitis and all this other stuff. Like at the very beginning, he literally could not get this dude out of his head. This was such a huge moment in his life that he has just been channeling Garrett Jacob Hobbs this entire time. So it's not a surprise to see this, but I think heartbreaking, it was with the words you used. And it is very much that. Abigail has such a sweet smile. Especially when looking at Will, and it's just like it just makes you like just want to reach out and be like, you need to come back to life somehow. You need to be back with us, but it's just not going to happen. So,
yeah. Are we ever going to find out like the significance of Garrett Jacob Hobbs, like in the sense of like why is it that Will like imprinted on him so much? Or
so it's interesting because the books make this kind of. The books don't expand on this a lot. It's just that Will went through this experience, this traumatic experience, and came out of it fundamentally changed, and kind of broken in a way where he didn't want to do this work anymore. So he kind of semi-retires, which is when Jack finds him and tries to get him to, catch the red dragon, and that's how he gets back in touch with Hannibal and all this other stuff. But it's kind of just like glazed over in the books, right? Like this is just a historical fact about Will. Here, obviously, we have exploded it into detail, and it is for me, it's just that one thing. It's just that this was him going on literally his first case, right, in the field.
Right.
And seeing this amount of death and destruction and like just the idea of what this guy was doing just got into his head and he couldn't get it out. And then obviously, of course, like being surrounded by Hannibal, like maybe if it was just Alana around, he would have had some help. But since he made friends with Hannibal at the same time, like things just took it. Is that what you think? Or do you have a different take on it? I'm curious.
No, I was just kind of, honestly, I'm more curious to find out about how Will perceives it, like his understanding and his meaning making of this. I think that the cannibalism has something to do with it, because clearly, like from what we're seeing, he is also attracted to another cannibal, right? Like, so that's kind of definitely getting in his head in a way that like perhaps other killers haven't. So I don't know, but I like your understanding of it. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Will awakes from his memory and finds Beverly there to tell him about the muralist from the last episode. They talk about who it could be that possibly stitched this muralist into his own mural. And Will points out that it has to be some sort of second killer who not only knew about the project, let's say, about the mural, but also knew the killer well enough to charm him into being part of the mural. And Beverly's like, I don't want you to say that's Hannibal. And Will's like, no, it's definitely Hannibal. It's just absolutely Hannibal. And Beverly doesn't really want to hear that.
No,
but he does say it anyway.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because Will is trying not to at first, right? He's like, the second killer, whoever he is, but his voice changes so dramatically that like you just know he knows it's Hannibal, or he thinks it's Hannibal. And that's why Beverly is like, don't say it's Hannibal. It's Hannibal.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think this is, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like, because I know you've rewatched some of the shows, some of the episodes, more recently than I have. It feels like this part of the conversation is the first time we're really seeing Will kind of verbalize his terror of Hannibal. He tells Beverly like that Hannibal will have no motive, and he'll besides just his own amusement and curiosity, which is what's going to make him so dangerous. And he points out that like Hannibal wouldn't be able to resist leaving a small, what Hannibal later will call a signature, but some sort of small daring clue on the body of the muralist. And I don't think that he's been this honest about his concerns of Hannibal verbally to anybody at this point. Like, obviously he said Hannibal was a killer, but he's never specifically like tried to break Hannibal down into a profile. I think this is the first time that's happened.
I think I mean, at the very least, it's the first time that we're seeing it on camera, right?
Okay.
Because we know that a lot of stuff happens when we're not watching, but like, I think it's the first time that like we're seeing him really start to break him down as a profile, and it's just, I really love the use of like he wouldn't be able to resist it. Like, I find it so interesting, and I'm going to come back to that a little bit later because it makes me wonder about Hannibal's character.
Beverly agrees. She says she's going to look for clever details, but she's not going to be specifically looking for Hannibal. And Will is agreeable to this. He says, as long as you're looking, you look out there, I'll look in here, referring to his mind. Which, if somebody said that to me, I'd be like, this does not help your case, my friend.
Like,
but
okay,
I see what you're
right.
saying.
So like I said, I just transcribed episode 10, which, you know, in our timeline came out today.
Came out this morning. Has been out for an hour.
Exactly. And in that episode, Beverly is like, it's the one with Georgia Madchen. I was going to say Georgia Lass. Which
I corrupted you. I'm so sorry.
You
Yes.
corrupted me. Yes. Which in this one, Beverly is like, if you're not sure, I'll help you. And she's just like so supportive of Will. And it's just such a huge like whiplash to see how she's treating Will now. And I know that Beverly doesn't end the episode in a really good place, so I don't want to be too critical. But yeah, it keeps coming back how I really feel like she has betrayed Will in that sense, you know?
I feel like there's specifically two cases in this episode where Will, he doesn't actually verbalize this to Beverly. I think it's implied, but with Chilton, he specifically says, "Don't discuss my therapy with Dr. Lecter." And both of them do exactly the opposite. Both of them immediately go to Hannibal Lecter and tell him everything that they have talked about with Will, which is really frustrating. Because again,
Super
like
frustrating.
we want Will to, like, you know, arguably at this point, Will is the protagonist of the show. We want him to get better. We want to see him get better. We want him to capture the killer. Like, he's the quote unquote hero of the show. So we want to see this succeed. But when people betray him, it's just so miserable because he's in such a vulnerable place that he can't even get help from his supposed therapist or his work colleague that has this kind of trust thing with him. It's just sad to see, to be honest with you, especially
really
with the
is.
way this episode ends and the way that the next episode will begin. So, we're going to cut to our kill of the week, which is notably not connected really in any way to the main part of the episode. It really feels superfluous at this point that we're getting these kills of the week. To be honest with you, I like it. I think it's neat and it's evocative and it's like a powerful image. Like, that's obviously like they like creating these murder scenes and kind of shocking the audience. Especially this one felt like it was just kind of completely disconnected from the rest of the plot. So,
well, thematically it is connected because you can connect that killer to Hannibal and the Bella storyline, right? Particularly, but it's
sure, yeah. I guess you're absolutely right on that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I agree that like it feels so entirely separate from what I care about in the episode.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, that like I'm just like, okay, like move on, and I'm like, but the imagery is also so beautiful with the anyway. I'm gonna stop.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Basically, we see a point of view from a bee flying around through a forest. We just started watching Pushing Daisies again, which is another Brian Fuller joint, and it's like, this is the kind of thing that you expect from Pushing Daisies, like this kind of like hyper realistic, but also like weird Uncanny Valley kind of type CGI stuff. It just reminded me of Pushing Daisies quite a bit. But we see this bee like running around and then going into a literal beehive corpse where there's a bunch of honey inside of it, and then the CGI is all interesting and cool. And then we get our intro. And now Will is talking to Chilton, and he's offering Chilton the same deal he gave to Beverly. And when Chilton plays dumb, he kind of points out that I know you've been recording all of this, and I love Chilton's like, "What is this that you're offering for my that?" I just love that line so much. It's so good.
It is so good. I know that I said I hated Chilton, which I do, but also I really love him. Because that line delivery, like, it's so good. I also really love that Will is like using every means at his disposal to be able to like gain some kind of control over his situation. And of course he shouldn't be in this situation, right? That is the whole injustice of it. But I find it empowering to see him like, quote unquote, take control the same way that Hannibal told Jack he should do, right? Like
absolutely.
It's, in a situation where he has very little means to take control, he still manages to do it. And like the survival instinct in that like really speaks to me.
And I love Chilton so much because he's so easy to hate. I think because
yes, exactly.
He's it's not a character. It's not a character you're supposed to like. Like, you're not supposed to agree with his actions. But he's played so well and with such confidence that it just feels good. Like, it just feels good to watch him deliver these lines.
It's so funny because like I really, really hated him at the beginning. Like, actually just hated. I was like, take him off my screen. But now I'm just like, oh no, we need more Chilton.
we need a little bit more Chilton. He plays an interesting role in this, right? Like this kind of go between where that both Will and Hannibal can manipulate, and trying to be above the both of them, right? Like he is a pawn
in their twisted sexual games.
He is, absolutely, yeah. He is the pawn in the twisted sexual chess that they are playing.
You're typing. Okay.
Yeah. I like
the title of the episode.
If I could type correctly while I'm talking.
Oh my God. He really is though. Like it's really funny. And I think that like we'll talk about that because I have some notes about that too, but like the show does play it off that way, right? Like it's very clear that this is what's going on, right?
Yes, absolutely. 100%. Will offers himself up to be studied and tested. And Chilton seems to resist this at first, saying like, I gave what I thought of I gave all my opinions to you on the stand. Like, all of this stuff is fake. And Will points out like, hey, if I'm right about Hannibal, that's super interesting. If I'm wrong about Hannibal and I'm a psychopath, that's super interesting. Or I could just be, completely making this up, which is also super interesting. There's a trivia section on IMDb, which I don't normally like to credit because there's no, like, I don't know how true this is, right? Like, I didn't do any research. But somebody on the trivia section of IMDb says this is a take on C.S. Lewis's trilemma, his commentary on Jesus. The trilemma says in a nutshell, he is either mad, bad, or God. And I wanted to bring that up because we talk about Hannibal being God a lot, and here is Will kind of, in this situation where he's manipulating Chilton to get what he wants, playing God just like Hannibal has with all of the people around his life.
Wow. Oh my God. I took a class at one point about like the conversation between Freud and C.S. Lewis about God. And it's like, this is bringing me right back to that classroom actually, because I remember this now that you say it. I'm like, oh my God.
Will also says to Chilton, do not speak to Hannibal about my therapy. He wants Chilton to be his exclusive therapist. He says, I am now under your, quote, exclusive care, which is very funny to me. And obviously, like, is exactly what Chilton has wanted from the beginning.
Yes, and I am now under your exclusive care is another line that Hannibal wishes Will had told him, right? Along with "you are not my therapist."
That's
right?
one of those sentences that, like, depending on the word that's emphasized, could have like 7 different definitions. And I just just imagine Will saying, "I'm now under your exclusive care,"
or "I'm now
exactly under yes."
I also love the way that Will can just read Chilton like a cheap newspaper. Like, remember when I said that Chilton was kind of mad that Will only ever talked about Hannibal during his sessions with him, and that it made him feel upset because, like, it was kind of the idea of, like, a new boyfriend constantly talking about his ex, right? Like
Yes.
the pawn in the sexual games. Well, Will is like, all right, fine, I'll be your exclusive boyfriend now. Like, and you just know that it's not true, that he's still going to be sleuthing on Instagram for his ex, right?
100%. Yeah, just desperately try not to hit the like button. Just desperately try not to. I'm 2 years deep into this camera roll. I can't hit the like button now. I don't actually use Instagram. I just like I get that from like popular media. I guess that's a thing that could happen. I don't know. I don't use Instagram enough.
Oh, that
know.
is a thing that happens.
Okay.
Trust me. Yep. I have stories.
Okay, excellent, good. So from here we jump into Hannibal's office, and we see Bella for the first time in the second season. They're looking at a painting of Lazarus, and Bella kind of makes jokes of, hey, I guess I should have bought into my faith sooner than now, so I would have friends that would, have this ability to bring you back from the dead. Kind of a rough chuckle, if you will. And there's a moment where she rubs her hand through her hair, and like a clump of hair comes out. And she says she's very regretful of letting Jack convince her to take chemo. So the last time we saw her, she was adamant that she was not going to seek treatment out. Obviously, that has changed. She tells Hannibal that she's like vomiting her stomach lining out constantly, and either sleeping all day or not sleeping at all. And that her best case scenario is long-term pain management.
Right. And there's like so much suffering in what she's saying, right? Like it's, and there's anger too, because there's like, illness is unjust when you think about it, right? It's unfair. And that's a valid reason to feel anger.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of anger here. Autumn and I discussed this a lot last night because we rewatched the episode together.
Right.
She's kind of mad at Bella, and we can get into it like a little bit later in the episode too. But like, in fact, I'll save Autumn's opinions for when the big thing happens in Hannibal's office. But but you're right. The amount of suffering and anger here is large, and it's hard to watch, to be honest with you. Like this person is coming over to Hannibal to try to get this comfort, and Hannibal is not particularly great at comforting people, but he's good at making them realize things that comfort themselves. And I love this line that he says after he says, Jack loves you, and will feel her silence like a draft after she's gone. And that is so evocative to me. I don't know who actually wrote those lines, but as somebody who's lost people close to him, but also like, I think this applies to even pets, right? Like if you lose a cat or a dog, like that silence that you get because they're not barking or meowing or moving around the house or whatever it is it moves through you like a draft. Like you just kind of feel it come and go. And it's just a real beautiful line. I just wanted to spend some time on it.
Yeah. Honestly, like one of this, like, when I walk into my mom's house, and my dog has been passed for over a year now, but I always expect her to be at the door.
Yeah.
And she's not. And it's interesting because like a lot of my family members, like I don't really live with them, and so like the silence, I've been accustomed to their silence to a certain degree, but like my dog, she was never silent. Like she was a husky. She always talked. Oh my God, she was such a pain, and like she's silent now.
Yeah. And Bella says that her silence will be inevitable. She describes the cancer as an invading force, and that she wants to surrender while she still has dignity. So she is contemplating suicide at this point. And Hannibal just hits her with the "How does that make you feel?" which is just wild to me. Like it's such a basic therapist line that I was just like, really, Hannibal? But she answers back and says she feels alive. And when she turns the question on him, he says that he finds death comforting, and that the idea that he could die at any time makes him appreciate the beauty and the art and the horror of the world. And I've got a line from Tumblr here. Oops, I'm scrolling the wrong page. This is from the Dark Mongoose on Tumblr. So thank you, Dark Mongoose, for posting this. But they put up a GIF set of Hannibal saying this, and then quoted Achilles from Troy saying, "The gods envy us. They envy us because we're mortal, because any moment might be our last. Everything is more beautiful because we are doomed. You will never be lovelier than you are now. We will never be here again." And I read that quote last night because one of the things I like to do is like scroll through the Hannibal tags for the episode names on Tumblr before we watch it, because it's just interesting what people say. And that idea of of what Hannibal is saying, I think is really, really, really powerful, and I think it speaks to Bella, as we're going to see later in the episode. But it's a pretty deep conversation, and his perspective on death, I think, leads her to change her perspective on this situation.
It's interesting because we'll talk about Autumn's opinions about Bella later, but like I'm trying to approach Bella in like a neutral way, right? Because I don't really have a horse in this particular race. Oh my God, I made a horse thing. Oh no, it's been so long.
It always comes back around to horses.
Always comes back around. But I think what is so interesting about the way that Bella and Jack are written as a couple is the fact that like you can so easily like take the side of one or the other, because like, and that feels very, very human to me as well, because I think that they both have done wrong, and at the end of the day they're just trying to do the best that they can. And like and they make a lot of mistakes as they're doing that. And that's just, I don't know. I find that so human. And so I don't want to say comforting, because I don't think it is. Like, it's actually a little harrowing in a way, because I'm like, oh my God, like we are doomed. We are doomed to make all of these mistakes together. But it's, anyway, just to kind of come back to what Hannibal says here, like it's weird because everything that he says is true. Right. But yet it also feels dishonest. Like, and
because it's Hannibal.
Because it's Hannibal. Because like, yes, Socrates did kill himself by drinking poison because he was sentenced to death. Like, and he could have escaped actually, but he chose to die in this moment, right? And like, yes, he did say that he owed a debt to Asclepius, the Greek god of healing and medicine, and he did pay that debt with a rooster. So like, yes, all of that is true. But he's also so clearly using it to try to manipulate the situation, trying to see what Bella is going to do with this information, that it doesn't feel honest. And I had never really thought about the difference between truth and honesty. And I don't know what to do with this information.
Yeah, it's fascinating because, I've described Hannibal as a chaos gremlin in the past.
Yes.
Or he sees himself as a chaotic, godlike figure in some ways. And we've talked about that quite a bit. I think in this case, like, he doesn't actually know which way to go yet, right? Like he's kind of going to the default, which is like, oh, I'm going to just do my job. While at the same time, like, leaving himself room to manipulate in the future. And all of that, like, because he's not coming at it from a clear motive, right? Because he's almost just as confused as she is about how he wants to handle this situation. By default, he just goes to being good at his job, which is crazy. Yeah. But it's not honest, right? Because he's not coming at it from, I want to make sure that you're okay. He's not coming at it from that angle. He's coming at it from an angle of, I want to see what happens, so I'm going to allow this to play out while giving you the best advice that I can. And yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking. All of the Bella stuff in this episode is very heartbreaking to me. So it's a lot to deal with. And then we're going to go to the crime scene where Jack arrives, where they have found a body in the woods that has been purposely on purpose, turned into a apiary for apes. Our boy,
on purpose.
Jimmy Price. Thank you, Will.
Yes.
Thank you, Will, from AV
Jimmy.
Club. Is the one who prevented them from exterminating the bees, because he trusts the bees. He talks a lot about his interest in bees. And
that actually made me like him so much more. I was like, yes, thank you. Don't kill the bees.
It's very much the two nerds in Silence of the Lambs, right? That helped Clarice identify the butterfly or the moth or whatever. Like, it's very much that kind of moment.
Yes.
And he calls them like the world's most successful suicide swordsman, because I don't even know how much I want to get into this. I made the joke earlier and felt weird about it, but like, the bees just like stick their stinger in and have an orgasm, and you can hear it, and then they die. That's their purpose in life. And yeah, this based on the decomp. The body's been here for like almost 2 weeks.
No. Again, like I said this earlier, but I really love these two dudes. And, I guess we have to start getting used to them being just the two of them now. But I really love that they're actually bringing a little bit of lightness to the show when it's, especially in these episodes where it's so heavy, like the topic is just so heavy all around, like, and then you've got like Jimmy making jokes about like bee orgasms. It's like, okay, thank you for that. I appreciate that.
And I want to go back to our simmering anger, go into red hot anger. It's not really explicit here, but I feel like Jack specifically, with everything that he's going on, is like kind of done in this. Like you kind of feel like he's not. And even after the fact, like when they've got the body back at the morgue, he's not checked in, right? He's not there when they investigate it. And I wonder like how much of his anger and his sadness over his wife is affecting his job at this point. And then we go back to the morgue, where Beverly is now showing the body of the muralist to Hannibal, which is her second mistake. Like, at first, like, she had that line in front of Hannibal of like, I have other jobs to do, and now she's doing this, and I'm just like, girl, what the fuck are you doing?
Listen, so I was watching this, and I was like live tweeting it, I guess, on the Discord, and I was like, I'm just going to read you my line from the Discord. All caps. No, Beverly, no, don't tell Hannibal this. And with the most amount of exclamation marks you can possibly imagine.
And just this entire time you're just like, no, Beverly, you're doing this, no. And she also makes the mistake of parroting Will's opinion, saying that that there's something hiding in here, basically, that the killer would have left a clue, which Hannibal describes as a signature, and it says so often, basically says she's parroting Will, right? She's talking about Will.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, so often you open your mouth and I hear Will Graham's words come out. And he is getting annoyed with her, right? Like the simmer is sort of like intensifying with her particularly. And I just, like Beverly, think about this for a second, right? If this man is smart enough to really have framed Will for this, do you not think that he's going to figure out that Like how I got so frustrated watching this episode because I'm like, Beverly,
please,
Beverly girl, come on,
what are you doing? Please, what are you doing? And she points out that, like, at least at this time, Will is not blaming Hannibal. And I think Hannibal says something to the extent of like, at least not to me, which implies that he knows Will is talking to now Beverly and also Chilton and whoever else, maybe about himself, about Hannibal specifically.
Mm-hmm. And Hannibal tells her, like, it's only by going beneath the skin that you will understand this killer's pathology. Like, he cannot help himself, right?
He has to.
Well, so then that's my question here. Like, can he not help himself, or is he also just trying to see if Beverly is going to figure it out, like, because of his curiosity? So basically, is he cocky or is he curious?
I think both. I think this is what Bedelia pointed out to him when she was telling him, like, when she was advising him not to get close to the FBI, right? Like, but he cannot help himself. Like, the irony is too delicious for him. Like, the fact that he is, absolutely proving that he is smarter than the most sophisticated investigative apparatus that the United States government could bring to bear, right? Like, he is that smart that he can outwit all of those people, and he just can't help himself. So I definitely think it's a combination. So
yeah, I agree.
We're going to jump back over to the BHSCI. I think I got those initials right. Who cares? Jimmy Price's apartment. How about that? We'll call it that. Now that I've got Jimmy Price memorized, everything is Jimmy Price's something.
Okay.
Chilton wants to use drugs to make sure that Will is telling the truth. He's going to give him sodium. I read sodium pentothal. I don't think that's it. Sodium asp or something, maybe.
I don't know.
Magical truth-telling drugs, basically. And Will asks, like, okay, you're going to inject me this. What would you do to make somebody forget? And Chilton says that it would require specific tools and skills and an unorthodox approach to science. And of course, Hannibal, they talk about Hannibal having an unorthodox approach to science, and how Chilton would know
I wonder
that.
when that would have come up, like, he's like,
The clown music starts. I can't remember if I talked about this on the podcast or not, but when I was working with Jake to get season 2 music, all of our, like, instrumental stuff that we do, it's just really difficult to find stuff to sample in the soundtrack because like this, right? Like this is horrible clanging clown music, and I'm like, I don't think we can make a beat out of this. Like, I just don't think that this is gonna work. But if you watch the show, it's perfectly in tune with what's happening in the episode. But like when you're just listening to it by yourself, it's just clang, 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 dark clown.
I was actually listening to like when I was watching, I was like, oh, that's the wild clown music that you were talking about.
It's crazy. It's wild. And as it begins to play, like it gives us a sense of chaos because Will, as the drugs hit his system, the lights begin to flicker. He's going in and out of it, and he wakes up sweating in Hannibal's office with Hannibal down on one knee saying, "I want you to draw a clock," injecting him with something, which is just absolutely terrifying.
And listen, like I watching this the first time, like I got shivers down my spine, and it was both like the bad shivers, but also the good shivers. And I'm just like, I don't want to investigate this right now. It's like, nope, not going there. Thank you.
Not going to focus on any of this if I can. Don't worry about it.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go.
Will begins to flash between the real world and Hannibal's office. He sees the clock that he drew. It changes shape several times from a normal clock to the melted clock that we've seen. Hannibal's face is like kind of almost melting a little bit. Like the features of his face, his eyes and his lips and his nose start moving around on his face. Very, very kind of creepy and scary. We realize, like Will realizes, that Hannibal was inducing seizures and memory loss on him on purpose, strategically. And he's saying this in the real world, so Chilton can hear it. And Chilton is like, you'd have to have some sort of, I think he says photosynthesis brain issue. I might be wrong. I don't know. I don't quite remember what he says, but he says you have to have like issues. And Will points out like encephalitis maybe. And now Chilton is kind of taken back a little bit. He says that would suggest a radically unorthodox form of therapy. Like even the conversations that Chilton has had with Hannibal, where they've kind of agreed that they are willing to skirt the gray area. Like this seems way too much for even Chilton to handle.
I just love the way that Chilton is like, we're not in Kansas anymore. Like he is just so close to actually figuring this out. But I just don't know if I trust him, right? Because like we know from the episode that like he does end up telling Hannibal about what's going on, but also like, I don't know, like it sort of seems like maybe he's playing him, like, and playing Will at the same time, or trying to basically de-pawn himself from their sexual games, trying to get some agency in it. But he's just, I don't know. I just don't trust that he has like the ability to kind of do that, right? And again, it's just creating problems for Will. Right.
To work within the chess metaphor that we've created, this sexual chess game, Chilton is a pawn desperately trying to get to the other side to become a queen. Right. Like that's part of the chess mechanics. Like he's trying to upgrade himself in order to be a more powerful figure. And very much is very much in danger because pawns are, literally pawns. Like they don't matter much in the main game unless they get to that other side. So he's desperately trying to get over there somehow.
Because the problem is that on the other side, you've got an actual queen who is doing everything that he can and will eat all of the pawns. as many and as often as he can. Exactly.
In fact, our queen himself, Hannibal, is going to show up at the Institute, and Chilton arrives, and he's very apologetic. He says he's canceled Hannibal's appointment with Will, and even goes so far to say that some of his thoughts on Will's diagnosis have changed, that some of Will's symptoms could have been induced. And I just love Hannibal looking to go, induced by whom? And like, even though we talked about this, even though Will said, do not speak of my therapy to Hannibal, fucking Chilton is just like, hey, here's everything that I know. And talks and specifically says like, I think that you may have psychically driven that dude just like I psychically drove Dr. Gideon. And, we have to stick together. And I'm like, dude, you were going to be eaten by the end of the season. Like, there's no way that you were not fucking on the table.
Listen, like this is 100% like Beverly level carelessness at this point. Like I was just so mad about it. And if I'm really honest, I don't care that much about Chilton's life, but like I do care about the promise that he made to Will. But yeah, I completely agree with you. Like we're going to get like soup of Chilton very soon, or like braised fillet of Chilton. Cause like, it's just, forget it. Like he's just not smart enough to be able to try to play chess with these two men. Right.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And Hannibal's reaction, like, again, going back to our theme for this episode, like, you can see the anger here that he's being denied access. That this lesser person than him has this control over his ability to see his bestie, his chess opponent, his good time boy. So
his good time boy. He so very much resents like what Chilton's doing, right? Because when I rewatched it, I wasn't sure if Chilton was trying to form a bond with Hannibal, or if he was just trying to get the upper hand on the situation. And I think the visual language is kind of leaning on that, because Chilton is always like at least a few steps above Hannibal, right? To get the upper hand kind of thing. And you can just tell that Chilton, or that somebody like Chilton, would just really love to have one over on Hannibal, right?
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Hannibal is seething about it. And you can see it in his face. He is just like planning what he is going to cook Chilton into.
It's the anger stuff is so good because Mads plays it so well, where you can see the anger on his face, but like I think if you were just having a conversation with him, just you wouldn't really see that. You would just see his normal face, right? Like unless you're being hyper observant about him, and of course we are, because we're the audience, so we are hyper observant about everything in this episode, everything, every single detail. Like we spent 15 minutes on Frankie Lounge's hats last episode, so we're quoting C.S. Lewis, for God's sakes. We're in it. We're doing it.
We are deep. We are deep in the Hannibal lore right now.
We're going to jump over here to Jack's house. Bella has gotten a stash of purple kush, some marijuana, which has a deep body stone. And Jack says, "Give me a hit. Like, I want to support my wife," as he takes a hit of the weed. And they begin to talk about her DNR. She says she's, filled out her health directive and included a do not resuscitate. To which he responds, "You're really harshing my buzz." And she begins to tell him about her experience with her mother, who also had lung cancer, who at the end, all she could do was scream in pain and beg Bella to make it stop. And there was nothing that she could do. And she tells Jack that she doesn't want to be remembered in that way. She wants to be remembered in a way that is much more flattering. And Jack says, I'll remember you in Italy with the men shouting Bella at you. It's weird that he's like, oh, I guess that's a good memory. Like, it's cute, but like also like very misogynistic in the same way. Like, I'll remember you being harassed in the streets of Italy.
Honestly, when I heard that, like, and of course this is such a beautiful moment, right? Like, it's a very intimate, like, sad, beautiful moment between these two people who are like husband and wife in real life, which like I cannot even imagine like playing
absolutely.
this anyway. But like, I agree that I kind of went like, what? Like when he said that, because I was like, Jack, come on. But it kind of shows also something about Jack, right? That he likes to have the things that others don't, right?
Yes.
So anyway.
He also says he's going to remember the way her hands smelled of thyme and garlic and onion when she was in the kitchen. And then he says, "I'm going to remember you as beautiful as you are right now." And that's a very sweet thing. I got really emotional during this conversation because of recently like I'm not in any danger, but deciding to do a health directive as part of kind of an estate planning thing, specifically because of my diagnosis, but also because like Autumn's dad lives with us, so what happens to him? Like, how do we make that kind of stuff? Just like making plans, and all of that stuff. I think people ignore because they, believe that they just don't really need it to do it right now. And when you sit down to do it, it's extremely hard to do. Like, all of a sudden, you have to make a decision. Like, I've got 3 sisters. Which one am I giving my father-in-law to? Like, right? Like, it's a lot of weird questions that you have to ask yourself. And for this conversation to happen, for her to express this like so specifically and so honestly to him, is something that we hadn't really seen. Like, she's missing the anger, right, that she has expressed with Hannibal about Jack. Like, this is just a very direct and softened, like, this is what I want. And I really hope Jack hears this, right? Like, I hope Jack is hearing this for what it is. So
that's so very true. Like, and it felt, and again, like, we haven't really seen Bella all that much at all, actually, since mid season 1, right? And I was kind of always wondering what was going on with that. You can kind of assume that, she's not doing great, but like, to see how far she's come from like, I don't want to talk about it, to her being able to talk about like what she wants Jack to remember her as, right? Like, it's such a huge leap in terms of like acceptance, I guess, or in terms of like just being able to talk about it. And I just honestly like the line about like the hands that smelled of thyme and garlic when she was in the kitchen, like it really got me, because I'm like, yeah, it's the little things that you remember about people when they're gone, right? And it's like,
it's gonna be that silence as a draft, right? To go back to Hannibal's line of just like something that you experienced all the time that didn't necessarily doesn't exist anymore. And that's part of grief, right? That's part of the sadness of losing somebody that's close to you, especially in a relationship like this. Like, identify a lot with Jack and Bella as, two people who obviously have their own careers and that don't have children that are going through this situation. Like, it's really, really difficult for me to separate out my feelings about this because it's so similar to me and Autumn.
But it's also okay to project on that, right? Like, that is the whole point of fiction, for you to be able to think about things that maybe you wouldn't have necessarily thought of, or like to kind of achieve some sort of catharsis if that's something that you need, right? Like, it's okay to not be able to separate that. Like,
it's what I'm hearing is it's okay that Hannibal is my therapist. Is that the
I really hope that Hannibal is not your therapist, but
I don't know
what a hell of a way to die, right?
I don't know what the opposite of Hannibal is, but if there could be an opposite of Hannibal, it would be my therapist. She is such a sweet young woman who doesn't seem to eat people at all, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you would never know, right?
It hasn't come up. I haven't asked specifically, so but I can find out.
Okay, well, good luck with that. Don't ask too many questions. Don't Beverly yourself.
I'm gonna get Beverly if I'm not careful. We don't even know what that means yet. Like, later on, you're gonna be like, did you really say get Beverly? And you're gonna be really mad at me about it. I just want you to know that. We're gonna cut to a woman. This is the great actress whose name I've just absolutely forgotten. She was in Pulp Fiction. She's that person in Pulp Fiction. If you know, you know. Amanda Plummer.
We skipped a little part here about the next day identifying the body. Like, it's just a little part, but like, it's just
I'm sorry.
High white blood cells and everything.
And I think our boy Jimmy Price points out like this could have religious connotations because of the honey and things like that. But specifically, they know that the guy was lobotomized. That's the big thing here.
What a way to bury the lead, right? They're like, oh, he was sick. And he was lobotomized. Like, lead with that, right? Like,
yes.
No,
not at all.
So weird.
So then we cut over to Amanda Plummer from Pulp Fiction, who is giving acupuncture treatment to one of her patients who is complaining that the arthritis pain is so bad he doesn't know how long he can take it. And then she starts like putting in the little needles, and then she's like, can you feel this? And he's like, no. And then finally he says, I can't feel anything. And that's when she goes in with this giant needle directly into his eye, and then gets the hammer out, starts twisting around, and it's super gross. And I didn't like it. Don't want to do this at all.
I noped out of that. I wasn't watching.
Yeah, it's not.
I was like, nope.
You did not miss anything, I promise. Like, it was just, and we go to a park where a child runs up to pick up a Frisbee, and then looks at this guy who is like staring out at the sun, and it turns out to be this arthritis patient, and he's still alive. And we cut from here pretty quickly through this guy like in the lab with the ERT team, and Z literally calls him the living dead because he's been lobotomized. Like, he's not in any shape to live. They don't talk about what happens to this dude, but like, what the fuck do you do with a person like this that this happens to? Like, I guess it goes back to the DNR and family and things like that, but Jesus Christ, like, if you're just lobotomized, what do you do with that person? I don't even know. That seems like a horrible, especially if it's like a victim of a serial killer. Like, what is the government responsible? Like, my mind went in a lot of different directions with this guy because they don't zip it up at the end. So I was like, I don't know what happens to this dude.
I mean, listen, I think that the whole narrative point of this dude is just to kind of say, like, without pain, we are not alive, right? Like, sure. Pain is necessary for life, which is like such a drastic and violent way of kind of like showing that. But I don't know what would happen to him. I assume assisted living, because you can't like, I mean, you can't, what else are you going to do with him?
Yeah, right? I guess that's like, it. Yeah, I guess.
Like, you can't euthanize him.
Just what a bummer for everybody involved, right? Like, it's just a horrible thing to do to a person, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's awful.
Beverly arrives, and it's commented that she's basically been like out. Like, it's the other two ERT team members have noticed that she's been like doing her own thing. And then when she hears that the bee stings that were on this person who's been lobotomized are hiding injection marks she kind of has a eureka moment, and she goes back to the muralist's body, and she begins to look at the stitches, and she notices that the stitches are hiding stitches, and she hears inside of her head Hannibal's voice. Only by going deep into the killer's skin will you understand the killer's pathology. And sure enough, when she opens up the stitches, she realizes that there's a kidney missing.
How did they not do an autopsy on this corpse again? Like, I need to understand what is going on at this FBI.
Yes.
Like, this version of the FBI. Like, why is it that these people are not doing their jobs? Like, I just don't understand. I know
hard.
that it's for narrative reasons, and I know, but like, it's getting harder and harder, I find, to suspend disbelief. But yeah, I was just on it. And I think it's frustrating specifically because it leads to where we know it's going to lead, right? Yes. Like, I'm just screaming at her to like stop what she's doing, or to just like get some help, talk to Jack. I don't know, but like, just don't do what you're thinking of doing.
Exactly. Yeah. It's frustrating watching this, I think, because we root for Beverly. Beverly is one of our faves, and we just feels like she is making mistake after mistake here.
Yeah.
We're going to jump from this to Will, who is seems to be still undergoing some of the effects of the drugs that he took. He's sweating, he's shaking on his bed, and he remembers the night of his first seizure, which we saw in season 1. This is when Dr. Gideon was sitting at Hannibal's table, and Hannibal was convincing Will that Gideon was not there, that nobody was there, and Will kept seeing Garrett Jacob Hobbs in Dr. Gideon's place. But this time, Will is kind of seeing this from the outside. And I have a question for you that I was curious how you took this. Like, is this his like empathic ability that he's used to? Like, is he just reflecting this ability back inside of himself, or is this like a recovered memory situation? Like, how do you think that because this is the first time I think we've seen him reconstruct his own memories like this, and have him be the objective observer outside of it, literally outside of it, because like he's like looking through his cell bars to this.
Yeah. I thought that was a really good question, and I did think about it, because when we've seen him do this kind of reconstruction before, he is always like in the position of the killer, right? Mm-hmm. And again, having transcribed this not too long ago, I remember that I remarked that there were 3 eggs at the table, right, in this conversation, one for each of the killers. And he is not in the shoes or in the point of view, the whatever, of either himself, Hannibal, or Gideon. And at this point, like, these 3 people have at least taken one life, right, that we know of. Hannibal much more, Gideon much more, Will 1. But so I'm like, okay, so this could be 2 things at this point. Either his empathic power or whatever is evolving, or I think it has to do with the fact that he didn't feel like himself when he was having that seizure, right? And so I think it's also a way to kind of visually separate season 1 and season 2, Will. But also for us, the viewers, to be like, what you've been showed in season 1 might have all been a lie. Like, we bamboozled you, or Hannibal bamboozled you the same, or no, wait, let me say that again. The show bamboozled the viewers the same way that Hannibal bamboozled Will.
Sure.
Right? So I don't know. That's how I saw it.
Yeah, I think that's a valid
take. How did you see it?
So to me, this feels like, because Will keeps mentioning that he doesn't remember things, and that he wants to remember things, and that he actively asked Chilton, what would it take to suppress memories? So to me, this is him like delving into his own brain and like discovering his memories, which I think it's kind of impossible unless you have this quote unquote superpower, right? Like, I don't know that, especially this easily. I know like recovered memories is obviously like a psychiatric thing that happens all the time, but like, you don't just get a shot in jail and you start remembering stuff. Like, but we're gonna just like paper over that real quick. We don't really care about the realism.
Yeah, exactly.
But to me, this very much feels like he's literally recovering memories. So like now he has this tableau in his brain, and he has to ask himself, because Hannibal has specifically said, if you recover memories, you can't trust them. Now he has to ask himself, can he even trust this? And it seems like he does.
And that's kind of the issue, right? Like, what we call recovered memories, because it was a big thing like in the 80s and the 90s, where like, people would go under hypnosis, and you're seeing this a lot in the X-Files, right? Like, it was the time of the recovered memories, where like people would go under hypnosis and then say things, but that they quote unquote remembered, but then it turns out that like those events maybe never took place either, right? So recovered memories are not reliable, right? We don't actually, from what I understand now, like it's kind of considered to be junk science. It's not, and that doesn't mean that like you can remember things that you had forgotten, but like recovered memories per se, like it's kind of like not, it's very untrustworthy.
Sure.
But so yeah, so I don't know. I'm like kind of I'm in between two things right now.
Yeah, it's difficult to understand what could be happening, and the show purposely makes it that way, right? Like I think the show wants you to question these kind of things. And as we go on, we see again the repetition of this scene. So Hannibal and Gideon having the conversation of I just love the moment where it's like why do you're the person who claims that he's the Chesapeake Ripper, and Gideon's response, why do you say claimed? It's so good. But again, this time, like
line delivery,
instead of having a seizure in the corner, like we see a very much aware Will like looking back and forth between the two of them. And we hear Hannibal again saying it's a terrible thing to have your identity taken from you. But this time this feels directed at Will and not Gideon. Just a different kind of take on this conversation that happened in the last season.
I found this so interesting because I think that this is also like an example of Hannibal holding Will to a different standard from everybody else. Because if we remember, like he was so angry that people thought that Gideon was the Chesapeake Ripper. And yet he like orchestrated the whole like Will is the copycat killer, even though he is, right? Like this is really interesting to me because he doesn't seem to have it in him to be angry at Will. And yet we've seen him get angry or at least annoyed with people so easily. But Will, like, I don't like, he wants that man.
He wants that man. There's something about this dude, like, and he's talked to Bedelia about it. Like, there's something about the empathic brain that he feels where Will can understand him in a way that nobody else can.
Yeah,
and that's extremely meaningful to Hannibal. Like, we haven't seen Hannibal mentioned one other person in his family a few episodes ago, right? But we haven't seen any sort of actual connection to real people from Hannibal at all. So this is
a little bit to Alana, but that's it.
A little bit to Alana, yeah.
But Alana is also a pawn in their sexual games. Let's be real.
I would say she's a bishop. I'll promote her over.
Yes, fair.
I'll promote her over Chilton. I think she's a bishop or a knight, even maybe.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yes,
Actually, I kind of like the knight metaphor just because she makes just the way the lateral moveset is, but that's getting kind of into a dumb. I'm way overdoing the metaphor. I'm ripping it apart at that point.
No. I love it. Let's overuse this metaphor as much as we want. I love it.
Beverly comes back to visit Will, and she brings news about the kidney. And Will comes up with a new theory that the copycat killer could be the same as the Chesapeake Ripper. And when he hears that Beverly brought Hannibal on this, he is horrified and shocked and tells her, like, don't go take this to Jack immediately. Stay away from Hannibal. But she can't let it go. She's like, what is he doing? What is this killer doing with the trophies? Like, if he's taking trophies. And Will flashes on several different things. Cassie Boyle's murder in the woods, the what did he call it? Something kabuki, field kabuki. And then he flashes on himself having breakfast with Hannibal for the first time. And sees himself eating the breakfast sausage and realizes, Hannibal has been eating these people. He's been eating this.
He's eating them,
and that's a hard thing to come to terms with, I think. So that's difficult.
I mean, I'm chuckling, but yes, absolutely, that's horrifying. But it's also interesting to kind of see that, like, this is the moment that he realizes it, right? Like, because we don't quite know how much Will knows about Hannibal. And to see him come up with that deduction or that realization is just like kind of amazing. And it's okay. So when I was thinking back to this episode, there's obviously some very big differences between the way that, like, Will is dealing with Beverly and Jack was dealing with Miriam last, but there's also, unfortunately, some similarities, right? And so I was kind of wondering if Will might have, like, knowingly been sending Beverly to her death, but I don't personally think so at this point anyway. But it kind of reminded me of how Jack was manipulated the situation to send Miriam last to Hannibal. But then I see, like, the whole this scene is very clear that Will is genuinely telling her to be careful, like, and he's not actually acting the way that Jack is acting with Miriam. And also, I do want to give Beverly some agency because she does make the choices all by herself, and there's no power differential. If anything, like the power differential is in her favor, not in Will's favor, right?
Yeah.
And there was no negging, right? The same way that Jack was doing with Miriam. But I find this parallel or this callback to be unsettling.
I think the parallel is definitely there. I'm with you. I don't think that Will is knowingly sending Beverly to her death. I don't think Jack was knowingly sending Miriam Last to her death. Right. I think they were just manipulating the people around them. And as you said, it's different because of the power differential and that kind of thing. But also, it's very, very similar. And it's also them just like willing to do anything to get to the truth, to find the killer, to do whatever. Yeah. So the parallel there is very strong. It's them it's Will making the exact same mistake that Jack made, right? Like this is going to be, as we know at the end, like something happens to Beverly. We don't know exactly what, but we can assume bad things happen to Beverly because of this, which bad things happen to Miriam Last, right? Like we know that they're both asking these young women to, I guess Beverly's not necessarily young like Miriam was, but whatever. They're both asking these women to go do things that they normally wouldn't do, and it's going to get them in trouble. Like they're making the same mistake. And I think it's interesting to make that parallel that Will is just as capable of making the same mistakes as Jack does. Because as much as we've talked about Jack a lot about how he's a very complicated character that we love and hate at the same time, but he's at the very core of his character, he's very human, and having that humanity be paralleled in Will at this time, I think is really interesting. And like he's not, I don't think he's knowingly doing it, but I think he's just willing to do whatever he can, right? Like he's not thinking of what the consequences could be.
Yeah. But he's also like telling her like, don't do this, right? Like, and I think it would have been different if Jack had been like, don't do this, you're not allowed to do this. Like he's telling Beverly like, back off, because this is actually really dangerous. And so I think that shows like also care for her.
Absolutely. Yeah. Right.
A care that Jack didn't necessarily express for Miriam.
Yeah. Not until it was too late. Right.
Not until it was too late. Yeah. Right.
We're going to go back to our killer. And I think this is, so it's Z and it's other guy, aka Jimmy, and it's Jack who knocks on Amanda Plummer's door. This is one of those weird things. They did this in the Totem episode too, where they just found the guy and he just confessed everything. Yes. Like he's just sitting there waiting for them. And I don't, like, you and I have talked a bunch about not caring about this killer of the week kind of thing. Like I didn't need to see them tracking down the DNA evidence or the parking ticket or whatever. Like them showing up to the house and her confessing is fine. And she plays this extremely well as like, because as they question her, like she slowly kind of reveals that she's the person they're looking for. Like she just basically confesses everything. Like Jack worked for weeks on this and she just tweeted it out. She just put it out there.
I also love this moment because she's like, it's kind of, and again, like it's very bizarre because the episode is so very serious, right? But like you said, she just kind of like tweets it out. She's like, admits it openly. And there's this really funny moment when she says, Mr. Halloran died with a head full of bees. And Z is basically the Leo DiCaprio meme of like, there she is. And like both Jack and Jimmy are like, chill like,
out,
don't
dude.
Do anything.
Bro,
but like his eyes, they just light up. And I was just like, this is what I love about like Z and Jimmy.
Yeah, and then specifically Z, because we've talked before about his desire to just do his job normally without having Hannibal and Will like just saying random shit to him. It's very much, I don't know if
saying weird shit.
Yeah, that True Detective meme of just please stop saying, just like he's just partnered with Matthew McConaughey and he doesn't know how to deal with it. It's very funny. We should get into some True Detective. I think you would like that show in an interesting kind of way. And it's also like mostly filmed in my backyard, so it's fun to see like there's some stuff there. Yeah, there's no Ontario actors in there, I don't think, which is very funny.
So Z's not going to be in there?
No, unfortunately not.
Or Jimmy, I guess.
The killer says, let me just look up her name real quick so I don't call her the killer. Catherine says that she as they ask her about the victims, she talks about quieting his mind so he could die in peace, and that she was protecting these people from hopelessness, and she believes that that's absolutely beautiful. And obviously this is going to play into the next scene with Hannibal and with Hannibal and Bella in a big way. Like she thinks that she was helping these people, regardless of what the law says. She believes that, and that's
yeah. Right. It's like a perversion of healing, right? In this case, like, because she's like, oh, I helped them. I can't take away the pain, but I can do like, I can make it so that it doesn't matter. And I'm like, that is not such a perversion.
Yeah, exactly.
Of like healing people. And yeah.
This is why I don't trust acupuncturists.
I've had acupuncture done, actually. It was fine.
I've had it done 3 or 4 times now. I did it once for some like weird vertigo stuff that I was having.
Okay.
And it didn't help, but it was very relaxing. And then with the chemotherapy with the neurological issues with my fingers and hands and feet and everything, people suggested acupuncture for that, and so I tried it for that. I think I went to 3 sessions, and I was just like, this isn't doing it for me. Like I'm sitting here for 30 minutes uncomfortable. Like I don't know what it was. And it was the same guy. Like it was the same person I went to, so it wasn't a big deal. But like, I don't know. I just didn't dig it, so I just stopped going. So
yeah, I mean, I think that's also fine, right? I got it done like as part of it was a hospital thing because I was going in. Anyway, I had my pregnancy with my 11-year-old was actually quite complicated. And so I had to go in every week, and they had this acupuncture program where like while you wait to see like nurses and doctors, like they would give you acupuncture. And so
that's
like
wild to me. That's crazy.
I know. I was like, okay, cool. Like let's do it. I don't know that it did much, but it was like a nice moment of relaxation while waiting in a really uncomfortable place, like in a hospital bed. You know what I mean? So it's like, I couldn't complain about it.
Yeah, no, I definitely, it's like, the massage chair in the waiting room, right? Like it's just something to, yeah. It had to be, I know with me, the acupuncture thing, like they like, put the needles in and then they just shut off the lights, put on some like weird, Enya music, basically, not Anya, Enya music, and like I was in the dark for 30 minutes, and that's how it worked. So it's just, I can't imagine like being in a hospital room like that. It would just be super strange. So,
oh my God, no, they didn't turn off the lights, obviously. It's just like, I don't know. I don't know how much it helped, but it definitely didn't hurt. Yeah. And I did not get lobotomized, which I will take as a win.
That's a win. That's a W on the board. That's a dub. That's a dub on the board. That's a dub on the board. Absolutely. Let's go over to Bella, who has arrived at Hannibal's office. She's too weak to walk by herself, so she needs assistance getting to the chair. She says that chemotherapy is hitting her hard. And as he sits her down, she says that she's brought him a gift. And she says that she is paying her debt like Socrates did, and thanking him for helping her understand that death is not a defeat, but a cure. And he immediately recognizes what's happened and asks her, like, what have you done? And she says, I've taken all of my morphine. And she talks very specifically about Jack, not wanting Jack to find her dead. I didn't want to die at home. I didn't want Jack to find me or make that call or be in the room with the body. And I think anybody who has had that experience knows what that experience is like immediately. It's a very powerful feeling of wanting to protect your loved one from that. And it made Autumn really, really angry. At the same time, it made me really, really sad, which is, I think, kind of interesting. Yeah. She kind of interpret this as Bella like removing Jack's choice in such a way, and then also putting like a whole lot of baggage on Hannibal, right? Like we know Hannibal can deal with dead bodies, but like she doesn't. You know what I'm saying? Like this is a big thing to do with basically a stranger. Like I'm going to come die in your office, and Autumn was real mad about that.
I mean, with reason, right? Like
sure,
with reason, and I think also like, and Hannibal does say something about her like denying Jack his goodbye, right? Yes. And we'll get to that because we're not even there yet. But like, I completely agree with Autumn. Like, it's a tough situation, and again, like it's fiction, and so it's kind of easy to just kind of take somebody's side. But like, if you're thinking about it in like real life terms, like I'm not entirely sure that there is a good or like solution to this problem, right?
Not
like
at all.
It's because her fear of not wanting Jack to find her body after she takes her own life is like I reacted viscerally to that line. I was like, this is like, that was really what got me in the whole episode. And yeah, so like I understand what she was trying to do. Also, it's a lot to put on a stranger.
It's a lot to put on a stranger. Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
a lot to put on a stranger.
I think there's a version of this where they were writing it so that Hannibal was giving her the drugs to help her at this. Like, I feel like there was a version of this, of the script at some point. I don't actually know that. That's me just guessing. So if I'm right or wrong, please don't be mean to me in comments on Spotify. Be nice to me. But it feels like that was like, could have been a different way to approach this. So the reason that she would go here is specifically because he was going to assist her in her death. But that doesn't happen, right? So she doesn't.
But that's kind of what she's hoping, though, right? Like, she is literally, that's what she's saying. Because of the conversation that they had, this truthful but dishonest conversation that they had earlier, she's like, oh, so he would understand, right? That what I'm trying to do. He, again, like, Hannibal is so good at like ingratiating himself with people, like with the psychic driving, the unorthodox methods with Chilton, right? And he does the same thing here with Bella, where he's like, oh, you know, I would understand if this is what you wanted to do, right? Like, and she, so much so that she has given him like a coin with like a rooster on it, right? The same way that Socrates paid his debts to the god of medicine, right? So she is offering him something the same way that you would make an offering to a god. What she doesn't know is that she's praying to the wrong god in this particular case, right? Like, she's not actually speaking to the god of healing and medicine. She's speaking to the god of chaos.
Yes.
And suffering, really. So I think that's kind of what this created, right? Like, Hannibal kind of sowed the seeds of discord, and he is now collecting the offerings from Bella.
Yes.
So that's why I think she went to him, because she assumed that he would allow her to die, and that was his way of helping her. So I think that's what she was hoping for, right? Not necessarily that he would give her the meds, but that he would allow her
to die. Yeah.
To die. Right. Exactly.
And then they do talk about this goodbye, where he says, you know, you denied Jack his goodbye. And she says, I denied him a painful goodbye and allowed myself a peaceful one. And then she says, tell Jack I love him very much. And she says, goodbye, Dr. Lecter. And he says, goodbye, Bella. And we hit a commercial break. Imagine getting like an advertisement for fucking dish soap right after this scene. Like, can't imagine in what world we would live in. To like, oh my God, NFL football is coming on. Like, just the whatever.
Fried chicken.
Right? Yeah. KFC bucket to get a bucket of chicken for $9.99.
Oh, there you go. But and I think that like this is where I most disagree with Bella. I like denying Jack the goodbye, right? Because I think that because it's anyway, like it's complicated, because in Canada we have, you know, medical assistance in dying, which was originally meant for people with terminal illness, where like in order to allow them to kind of like decide a little bit more on the timing of their death. There's a lot of political stuff about that I'm not going to get into now.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But
yeah, like I mean,
this is
the famous case of Terry Schiavo, which I just learned about recently.
Oh yeah,
but
yeah. So now it's basically being used to euthanize disabled people, which, you know,
not good.
Anyway, not at all what I thought that MAID was going to be for, and what I think it should be for, right? Which is to allow people to kind of to have more control over their death when they no longer have any control over that, right? So.
Having watched several people go through the hospice process, and having been part of the family of watching a family member go through the hospice process, the hospice crew that I've experienced are some of the nicest and most gentle and brutally honest people you'll ever meet in your life. But it's still a very hard, if not horrible, experience for the family to go through, because I mean, you're just sitting there and you're just waiting. And if there was a decision that could be made to allow that to go faster, easier, better for that person, like it should be. Autumn talked about that as well. because we don't have that here in Louisiana, but there are states that allow that. So like there's the possibility that she could have done this not in Hannibal's office, right? But then we get into like what obviously we're writing a TV show, like we want her to be in front of Hannibal to do this.
Of course.
But it's really difficult because of the stuff that we're going through to remove ourselves from this. Like you talked about projecting ourselves onto this relationship between Jack and Bella, and it's really difficult to let that go. And it's I don't know, this scene really got me because one of my fears is this, right? Is exactly what she's afraid of just having to have Autumn deal with something that, you know, alone, and like I'm just there or whatever. I'm not even there anymore. And it's a very, very powerful thing, and I get it. But man, I got to be honest with you. The idea of I don't know. Like she didn't say goodbye, and that makes me so angry, right? Like,
same.
And it just, I guess that's what it comes down to for me is like, when if I didn't have that moment, like if the situation was reversed between me and Autumn, and something happens to Autumn, and I don't get to say goodbye to her, if I don't have that moment, it would be, I would regret that for like the rest of my life. If there was an opportunity there and I wasn't able to have it, obviously like you don't always get those opportunities, and I understand that, but like if there was an opportunity and that didn't happen, I would be so upset. And I can't imagine what Jack would feel if he found her dead in this, you know, situation. So it's very complicated because I have a lot of sympathy
really
and empathy for Bella at the same time that I'm talking about this. So.
Well, there you go. So like, I think what I'm trying to get down to is the fact that like, I understand her choice. And I understand that it's not for everybody and that not everybody would make that choice, but I understand it. What I do wish is that if I were to ever be faced with a decision like that I would lean on the people around me and give them also a chance to say goodbye. Yeah. Right. Like, I think that is something that would be very important to me because I know that it would be important to them. Like if roles were reversed and it was me, like I would hope that the person making that decision would allow me to say goodbye. Right. Yes. Because it's important.
It is. It's extremely important. And I would highly encourage people to go, like figure out all of their medical stuff ahead of time because, I've been in situations where one family member wanted one thing and another family member wanted another, both claiming to have had conversations with the person that cannot do stuff, and like which one gets overruled. And that's the last thing I think that anybody wants, is to be in a situation where they can't make those decisions themselves and their family is arguing about it. Like that's a horrible situation to be into. So yeah, definitely go get all that stuff done. Everybody go write it down. Exactly. Go get it notarized. Like, go to a lawyer. Get that shit taken care of.
Listen, I am theoretically, as far as I know, in very good health, and I have a will that outlines all of this stuff.
And you have a kid last night because you need to. you need a will because you have a kid. Absolutely.
And so I was like, I told the notary actually when we were talking about like what we want. This is going to be a little morbid, but like how do you want to be buried? Like how do you want your body disposed of? Right? And I was like, I will come back and haunt the bastards if they embalm me. Like, I do not want to be embalmed. Like burn me or bury, like do a natural burial or whatever, but do not embalm me. Like I will come back and haunt you until you die. Like that is so important. And so it's outlined in my will. And I just, at least I know that my family won't have to make that decision, right? For me. Yeah.
I think that's good. When you told me that the other night when we were talking about this, I immediately flashed to, because I haven't actually we have started the process, but I haven't like written down everything yet. So I was thinking like same. I need to make sure I remember that because I don't like that at all.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, and it's just such a standard thing. Like a lot of people just do it that way, and it's like, no, like take all my organs, give them to people who need them, but like do not inject me with that blue liquid. Like I don't want that.
Yeah, I don't want an open casket situation or anything like that. I hate open caskets with a passion. So, so back to the episode. Bella starts slipping off, and as she does, her vision starts fading out. We see Hannibal kind of blur out, and then we get our commercial break. And as we come back, Hannibal kind of sits back in his chair, and we talk a lot about Hannibal looking like a predator, and he's definitely going to later in this episode, and he definitely looked like a predator in the previous episode. Yeah. Also here, just with him sitting and watching, being very confident in his ability to bring her back or let her die. So he's not, I think any regular person, quote unquote, would be like trying to rush to help, but he's sitting here and he's making a decision, and he takes the coin that Bella gave him and he flips it, and as he looks at the result, he's obviously like called this in his head. He gets up and starts getting medicine to revive Bella, and this coin flip I think is really controversial in the fandom, and I'm very excited to get your side of this, because I have an opinion about this, but I'm curious what you think about it.
Okay, so I want to know what the fandom thinks about this, but I will tell you, first of all, like, it made me incredibly angry. It's not the fact that like he resuscitates her when she had signed a DNR, like, because I think I can like, because I don't know that he would know that necessarily, right? So like, anyway, I can intellectualize or like rationalize either choice, to either let her die or to resuscitate her. But what really gets to me is the fact that he lets it up to chance. Like it's like Bella's not even worth like a conscious decision for him. Like she was just a bet that he made with himself. And like that fills me with rage. More than a lot of other stuff that he's at. Like, this is on the level of the medical gaslighting, like the level of anger that I had about the medical gaslighting for Hannibal.
I'm just chuckling because of the reference, not chuckling because of your feelings. So
no, it's fine. You can chuckle at my feelings too. It's fine. But like, it's really how I feel. Like it made me so angry, and I kind of like, I had like a blackout moment of rage where like I had to rewind, like go back and like watch it again, because I was like, what just happened? Like I just blacked out from the rage.
So I didn't do a lot of research into the fandom, so I don't think and I think the limited research I did is that everybody has a different opinion about this, and how meaningful it is, or how meaningful it isn't, right? Like as you're saying, as if Bella isn't even worth a conscious decision. I saw an argument saying that with his confession, not necessarily confession, but with his announcement that he finds, comfort in the idea of dying, and so that can make him appreciate beauty, that the flip of this coin doesn't really mean much to him, but it also means as much to him as it means to Bella, which means it means everything to him. So that there's kind of a dueling argument with this, right? Like if it's just left up to chance, then that's kind of him saying, I can do either one, but I'm going to do the one that I'm going to be this like chaos gremlin that I am. I'm going to be this chaos god. He's playing God again.
Yes.
And
sure.
I think personally, the way that I view Hannibal in the show through this point, as he is definitely like spreading his wings a little bit in season 1 and 2. And this is an example of that. So I think if this had been a quote unquote normal patient like Franklin or even a Tobias or anything, he would have just like not even bothered to do the coin flip. He would have just let him die just because. This is more powerful to him because it's related to Jack and because he's so involved in these people that I think that he has to have this coin flip to give himself permission to save her or not save her, right? Like again, he can't quite doesn't quite know what's going to happen or how it's going to affect it, so he just has to leave it up to chance. But
I like that.
So it's an interesting take, I think, on it's an interesting way to have him make this decision, I guess is my takeaway.
I like that because it's the idea that like he is too close to this particular situation to be able to make a clear decision, and so he leaves it up to chance because he doesn't want to make the decision necessarily. I like that. I just and I think you could also argue that like no matter because we don't see the result of the coin toss, right?
Yes.
And so sometimes like it's kind of interesting to do a coin toss or something like that just to kind of see how you feel about the result. And then to be able to make a decision, right? So maybe he flipped it and he was like, let her die. And he's like, no, I don't want to do that. And therefore like he decided, right? Like you don't know. We don't actually know. But I think how we feel about the situation reveals something about us. And I think that what it reveals about me is that I haven't forgiven Hannibal yet, right? Like for what he's done to Will, and that he is still very much in the doghouse for me anyway. So I don't know. We'll see how I feel about that in future episodes.
And I think that this is think there's an aspect when I talk about Hannibal spreading his wings, I'm also talking about him incorporating like Abigail and Will into a family unit, right? That's something that I don't necessarily think it's happened in his life, and so I wonder how much of that experience with Abigail and how much of this experience with Will is making him question his own choices or questioning his natural choices, right? Like we've seen him be so confident in his ability to absolutely fool everybody around him, right? Like he can plant evidence, he can do all of these things, but now here we are in a situation and he genuinely doesn't know what to do. His instincts are telling him one thing, his guts may be telling him another thing, or his head's telling him one thing. Like he's indecisive, and so he uses this coin flip to try to figure out, like you said, where how he feels about it. And he probably gets a little thrill too that there's a life in the balance of this. Like I think that Hannibal is the type of person who,
of course,
like, this is a huge decision that I'm leaving up to chance that I have complete control over. And yeah, but I can also see why this made you angry. By the way, like I absolutely see that.
Oh,
side
no,
of it too.
for sure. I didn't see this as you like invalidating my thoughts at all. I was actually really happy to hear the other side of that coin. I think that but I do stick with what I'm saying, that like he is not the god of healing that Bella thinks that he is. He is the god of chaos,
yes.
right? That I will stick with, because either way, no matter how you look at it, like it is still an absolutely bonkers way to make a decision like
of
that,
this magnitude, right? Like it's not like
of this magnitude.
Do I go to Buffalo Wild Wings or do I go to Olive Garden tonight? Like we're talking about a woman's life, and like and how it would affect, like, and not just like a woman's life, but like a repercussion from like Jack, right? Which is a person that he's actively trying to manipulate. So like he doesn't know which way to go with Jack. Does he ingratiate himself? Does he allow this to happen? Does he treat it like an accident? Like I don't think he has any clue what would be the best move. So he leaves this up to chance. And he probably, like, I think in as much as Hannibal believes in a god, or at least in the idea of what people believe into a god, he probably likes the idea of that god taking things into chance as well, and not just being omnipotent. You know, I think he would. I think he would like that. So
yeah, that's true. It's the chaos.
It's the chaos.
Right? Like this,
absolutely. Yeah,
the trickster, the Loki, the everything. Right.
He injects her with whatever, and she wakes up and she's not extremely happy. We jump over to the FBI, where Beverly is now looking for Jack, runs into Z and finds out that there was a family emergency, so that Hannibal and Jack and his wife are all at the hospital. So she's like, Hannibal is there? Meanwhile, Bella wakes up in a hospital bed. Jack is sitting close to her, and she rubs his head with her hands, and it's a very tender moment as he kisses her hands and her head. Hannibal is in the corner and gets up and like kind of makes to leave, but wants to apologize first, and give her the coin back, and said he couldn't do what she asked, and she uses what looks like all of her strength to lean over and just slap him across the face and tells him to get out. And you know, we talk about anger in this episode. I think this is probably the most vicious flash of anger that we get, and it's, again, everything with Bella in this episode is heartbreaking to me. But this idea of lashing out at this person who you trusted to do something, and then they denied you, had to be very, very difficult for her.
Well, the thing I think with Bella is also like, you know, as much as I kind of hate, as much as like Hannibal is not the kind of guy to ask for consent for anything, right? Like Bella also does kind of the same thing, where she like doesn't tell Jack her intention to do this. She denies him the goodbye in order to give herself a peaceful one, right? But she also doesn't ask Hannibal if he is willing to help her, right? She just kind of takes it for granted and just like shows up dying at at his doorstep. And so I just think that it's kind of an interesting thing where like she had just assumed that he would
roll with it,
let her die.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like and it's interesting that like you could probably make the argument that he led her to believe that, right? Like that.
Oh, absolutely. I make that argument. I agree with you. Yes,
he absolutely led her to believe that he would be a safe space for her to do that. I think there's no question of that whatsoever. It's just that he left it up at the very last minute to chance, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we're going to go from here to Hannibal's kitchen. Beverly is has broken into Hannibal's house and is trying to look for things, picking the lock of the pantry. She finds meat in the freezer and says, "Gotcha." And as she's about to walk out, she knocks over some wine or something. And as it spills into the floor, she realizes that there's a basement area in this pantry. So she goes down to the basement and to go exploring, gun and flashlight out. This is a terrible decision.
I feel like, again, I am Ben Affleck smoking his cigarette, because like it's just like, what, how have none of you all learned about search warrants, right? Like, what is going on at the FBI that they're just like breaking and entering into places? I don't even have it in me to be angry anymore. I'm just like, sure. There's no more energy. I'm just like, Beverly, you are literally walking into a trap.
Yes, absolutely. And this speaks to, I think, going back to Miriam Lass and Jack and Will and Beverly, right? Like, this is exactly what I said Miriam Lass again. God damn it. Or is it? It is Miriam Lass. No? Okay, it's not Georgia Lass. It's Miriam Lass. Okay, there we are. Oh my God.
It's Miriam Lass and Georgia Madchen.
It goes right back to that, of them pushing these people into doing stuff that is quasi-legal, if not actively illegal. Like, and Will, I don't think did this, but also remember that not only Will is interacting with Beverly about this, Jack has told her to, like, hey, do you know what your job is? Go do your job. In terms of talking to
Jack
Will.
is responsible for this too.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's getting pressure from Will and Jack to do this, which is why she's doing this, to try to see if there's evidence that she can get that she can then not necessarily use, but then she could go use to pursue more evidence so that they can find
I
stuff.
sincerely believe that Beverly should know better, though.
100%. Yeah, this feels
know
bad.
better. Like,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I was very willing to kind of let it go with Miriam Lass because she was a green
cadet
agent, right? Because I don't think that she was that young necessarily, again, because of like her credentials and her experience. But like, I think she was a new agent, and so she, made mistakes that like a more seasoned agent wouldn't necessarily have made. But Beverly should know better.
Yes, I absolutely believe so.
Right? Like,
and we should note, like, the next episode description talks about Beverly's body. So, like, it's impossible not to be spoiled of what, like, because at the end of this, it's a cliffhanger. So, I guess we should probably finish talking about the episode.
Yes, let's finish talking about the episode. I love that we're like Penny. We're ready to go now.
Yeah, it's 2 hours. We're good. Let's do the haikus. Let's do the thank yous. Let's get out of here. It's Sunday. Yep. So she goes deeper to the basement, and as she sees something, she flicks on a light, and it horrifies her. And it horrifies us, because as the lights go on one by one, we see Hannibal standing behind her, and it is fucking terrifying.
And it's not the good shivers in that moment, let me tell you. Like, it's just the bad shivers. I was just like, no! Yeah.
She points the gun at him, and he just rapidly leaps over, shuts off the light, and then runs the opposite direction. And we hear, as the camera kind of floats upward into the main dining room, we hear gunshots, and we see a gunshot like shot through the floor of this. And then we go to credits. And it's a big cliffhanger, unless your media application just moves to the next episode and you see dealing with Beverly's body, in which case it's just spoiled.
Exactly.
So because Mary is spoiled, I'm spoiling everybody else on this podcast. So you're welcome, everybody.
I mean, realistically, also, like, just there's still like a whole season and 3/4 of this. Like, of course,
people have to die in Hannibal.
People have to die. But like, so you and I have talked about this like off mic, but like this scene, man, like Hannibal looks like such a predator there. Again, like there's something so animalistic about him, like the way that he turns off the light and like runs off. Like, it just brings me back to what he told Bella earlier in the episode about thinking that he might die at any moment. Like, and it allows him to fully appreciate like the beauty, art, and horror of life, right? And it's like, in this moment, he feels alive, right? With this person pointing a gun at him, and like either knowing that he's going to be able to get out of this, or just being like, well, I guess we'll have to see. Yeah. And there's something like, I don't know. Like, it's having been in a life or death situation with somebody pointing a gun at me, like definitely not something that I would want to redo ever in my life. And frankly, if I could go back in my life and have that entirely erased, I would absolutely do that. So it's not like I'm just like, what a wonderful experience, because it's really not. But I can also understand like the adrenaline of it, like
Sure.
the pure moment of adrenaline of like having to save your own life. And it kind of feels also like this moment with him having simmered for so long in this episode is kind of giving him like an outlet for that anger, right? Like, it's like, oh, he has simmered. This is boiling now. Like he is able to allow that steam to come out, literally. Like he's letting off steam by killing Beverly.
Letting off steam, I think also, that definitely plays into our simmering and to a hot anger metaphor.
Yeah.
But also just want to mention like being able to take off the person suit, being able to remove the veil.
Yes.
So that the moment that he sees Beverly and what Beverly has seen, which we don't see as the audience, we just see her being horrified by something. I'm pretty sure
I can imagine.
I remember what
right?
it is, and it's going to be a huge shock. But we'll everybody's fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Of course.
It's my motto for this podcast. Everybody's
Well,
fine.
because I was thinking, I'm like, it could actually be Abigail, right?
It could be the body of Abigail. Absolutely, yeah.
It could be more Osabuco.
It could be just a bunch of Osabuco. Human, maybe it just has it marked human Osabuco and normal Osabuco. Like it's got like two different shelves.
Or Iberico ham, right? Like
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Anyway.
Yeah. Or the remainder of that leg, right? He's just got it in the freezer. Just
Yes.
waiting.
A foot. He's just got a foot.
But when he sees this and he sees that she knows him for who he actually is, when he sees that confirmation,
Yes.
he can then take off that person's suit and all of a sudden become that almost animalistic person, like that very cunning predator that we've seen him be several times. And it's genuinely terrifying, right?
Yeah.
Also just want to mention this because I think it's I don't know, like it's kind of, I may be reaching for this, but it reminded me of Silence of the Lambs when James Gumb turns the lights off on Clarice, and they have that little like she's trying to find him in the dark when he's got the night vision goggles on. It reminded me of that a lot too. So,
Yes.
I actually
I don't think you're reaching too far at all. I think that this show is full of these little nods, right? So no. I think this is
overall,
I
I think this episode is really interesting because it's a lot of. Like there's no like devastating like reveals, right? Like this is feels like a lot of characters getting into place, figuring things out, doing stuff, and everybody kind of circling around. So like we're kind of in the meat of the season as people are moving through these weeks that we know are going to end up with Jack and Hannibal fighting for their lives together in Hannibal's pantry. So
that's true.
just wanted to remind you of that because I feel like it's easy to forget every week that's the end game here.
It really is, and I think I made a comment about that, about how literally like every choice is already decided, right? And everything is leading us to that moment, right? Which is, I think, why, like, in part, the coin toss was so disturbing to me. That like this is one of the things that led to this moment. Like I think it goes against the way that I make decisions in my life.
Sure.
So like
yeah.
I just don't. I can't understand it. Like it makes me. Yeah. There you go.
Any last thoughts about the episode?
I do want to mention that like I know that next episode is an important one because I've seen so many people talk about this episode. Like the title of this episode I've seen online before. So I'm like, I know that there's big stuff happening there. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. I just
Are you reading?
Well, because I know the big thing that happens, but I didn't realize there's several big things that happens, and we're gonna.
Oh my god!
I cannot wait, listeners. If you're not in the Discord, you gotta. It's an open Discord. We don't allow minors, but there's a channel specifically so that Mary can freak out about all things Hannibal as she watches, and you got to be in there to watch it because it's extremely fun to watch, and you should definitely do that.
People laugh at me a lot. It's great. I love it.
It's going to be a lot. I can't wait to watch it tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun. But
yeah.
So yeah, we'll move into our haiku section.
Do you want to get us started with our haiku?
Sure. I wrote, life isn't over just because you die alone. Their love is with you.
That's really, yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Love it.
Now
I went a completely different direction. My haiku goes, curiosity, I really hate to say it, killed Beverly Cats.
That's so clever. I love it. I absolutely love that so much. That's so good. Thank you for sharing that with us.
I'm so angry.
We also want to thank all of our listeners, all of you people listening, for sharing the show, for commenting on Spotify, Apple Podcast, basically anywhere that you can comment.
Yeah.
Sharing this with your friends is definitely the best way to support us. Or you can just continue to listen to us. It's okay. It's fine. We like that too.
We do like that.
We will.
I love the Spotify comments that we're getting every week. Also, like that's been kind of a highlight, to be honest.
It's so fun. It's so fun getting people to respond to the stuff that we say in the podcast. It makes it all fun.
Exactly.
It's not like I would do the podcast if it got one listener and it was just Mary, but it's gratifying to know other people out there are like me and also like this podcast. So
yeah, definitely.
Also, thanks to Jake Lionheart and Banshee Beats for providing the music for the podcast. We very much appreciate you. Check us out on YouTube, Rude Eats, if you want to get episodes of the shows or if you want to see music videos and cool shorts for previews. And then we'll be back next week. And remember, until then, bon appetit.
Bon appetit, everybody. I have to go cook.
Run, don't walk.
Bake.
Run, don't walk.
I know. I'm like, I have to go do stuff, but I'm so mad about it. How much am I going to scream about this episode?
A lot. You were gonna be so angry and so mad, and I'm
gonna be mad.
Oh my god,
no.
you're gonna be so mad at. And like there's gonna be some screaming for other reasons. Like there's gonna be a lot of, it's a whole lot. I'm not.
But that's the thing. Like a lot of this stuff, like in the synopsis that I sent you, I'm like, but that doesn't make sense. Like none of this makes sense to me. So I'm like, anyway, I don't know. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with myself. This is, yeah. Hello.
Good morning.
What are you chuckling at by yourself?
I was watching TikTok, killing some time, and this lady was on. I don't know what show this is. What is it, like Pawn Stars or something? They take the old shit to the old guy, and the old guy's like, "Oh, it's worth so many millions of dollars or whatever."
Something like that. I don't know. Yeah, Antique Roadshow also.
Sure. Yeah. It was one of those, and the woman is like, I think that because it was like a little like bracelet looking thing. She's like, I think that this was a slave collar. And that my family, freed the slaves, and I think this name is the slave owner, and this is the name of the slave, and I think that my family did this and this, and the guy just looks at her and goes, "It's a dog collar," and I just, and the chick looks so taken aback. She's like, "What?" She had this whole narrative in her mind about my family and this whole situation, and does not exist at all. So.
That's okay. Yeah, that is really funny. I'm glad I interrupted that so that I could hear the story.
You came in at right the perfect time. I'm not a laugh out loud TikTok kind of guy, but that one really got me for some reason. So.
Well, yeah, it was a dog collar for crying out loud.
It was a dog collar. How are you this morning?
I am good. How are you?
I'm caffeinated and sugared up. Autumn made a giant cinnamon roll, so I had one of those.
Oh, she made the cinnamon rolls again.
I know she's found this brand, like this bag that you get at the just in the freezer section instead of like the little cans that you roll out, and they are like you set them out overnight to like rise or whatever, and then oh my god, they're so good. So she was like, should I just make the whole bag or just I'm like, just make the whole bag. It's rainy
it's like,
and shitty outside. Like we're just gonna want snacks all day. So
yeah, it snowed all night here actually.
What?
So we have a lot of snow. Although it is like just warm enough that I think the next like wave is going to be rain, which means that everything is going to melt, and I'm not happy about that.
Yeah, then it'll just be really, really shitty.
Yeah,
just junky on the roads. I don't like driving on the ice. I had to do it one time when I was in Kentucky for a work trip, and it was terrifying the entire time. Like I felt like I had no control over the vehicle whatsoever, and I was going to get into the biggest car accident. So I just it was not very fun for me. I was so stressed out the entire time.
No, I agree. It's truly the worst. Okay, give me a second because I don't know why I logged in immediately, but like my GarageBand's not open. Nothing. I'm not ready at all.
That's okay. Yeah, do your thing. No worries.
God. I don't know why I woke up like before 7, which is kind of rare. I don't usually wake up before 7.
Oh God, I wish that were me.
Let me just see if I can see. Yes, I can see audio waves. Okay, good. So it's recording. Yeah, I don't like waking up before 7. Like my body just doesn't like it. And so yeah, but I woke up before 7 and now I'm just like so discombobulated.
I woke up at about 2:30 this morning.
Oh. No.
And then for whatever reason was like, I need to take a shower. So like I showered
of course.
at 3 a.m. And my buddies at Duck Feed are still streaming. They're the East Coast crew are the West Coast crew are delirious because they've been hitting 12. They just finished actually. They just finished a 12-hour shift, so they were extremely delirious. Actually, I have some admin that I want to mention on the mic in the main episode about that. But so I was watching them and I was like, oh, you know what I should do? I should watch the X-Files because I have to record about that later. So 3:15 a.m. I turn on the X-Files and then I wake up at like 5:30 a.m. and the X-Files is over and I've made half the notes. So I had to go back and rewatch half the episode to get the rest of the notes. But I'm done. So I'm ready to X-File whenever the time comes today.
Okay, well, that's good. At least you're ready. Because I know last night you were also supposed to take notes for the X-Files and you didn't do that.
I did not do that at all. No, we didn't. We did not do that. I can't even remember what we watched. Autumn wanted to watch something. Oh, we're back on What We Do in the Shadows. We're watching the last season.
Oh, yay! Oh, I'm so happy.
It's so good. It's so good. That show is just continually as funny. Like it just gets funnier and funnier to me.
It really does, honestly. And I started talking like Lazo for some reason. Like, my good lady wife, Nadia. Just like, I love him so much. Matt
Berry is just such an impressive guy from like every aspect of the... Like, just he's just such a funny dude. Like, him doing New York City, that kind of vibe just fucking slays me, man. Just kills me. It absolutely kills me.
Yes, very well. Thank you. I love him. He's so good.
For Jackie Daytona. Just go good.
Jackie Daytona. He is. Oh.
Once you catch up, you should definitely check out the movie because it's very much the same. In fact, there's a couple of the same jokes in the early season that's in the movie, but it's also its own like different things since there's different people in it. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun to watch. So
I read about it actually because I was like, well, so what's the movie about? And I'm like, okay, I'll watch the movie eventually, but right now I'm just really loving the show.
Yeah, no, I definitely wouldn't stop your momentum on the show at all. Like we just happened to watch the movie first. And so we're like, oh, there's no way they could make a TV show out of this. And then we're proved wrong. Hard. Absolutely proven wrong.
I'm so curious how they're going to tie it up. Like how they're going to finish it, to be honest.
Yeah, same. How many episodes are left, do you know?
I mean, it's usually like 12 episode seasons or something like that. 12, 13 episodes. And we're like on episode 8 or 9. We're almost there.
Let's see. There's 11 episodes, so there's 2 more to go.
2 more to go.
One tomorrow, and then one December 16th. So nice. And then that series will be over.
I've only started watching this show like a month ago, and I will be devastated when it's over.
I could say that about just like every show that you watch, though. Like you go through them pretty quickly.
I do.
I was trying to explain to Gary, my co-host on the X-Men podcast. He was asking me about duck stream plans, and he was like, I know that she's your co-host, but like, what's her deal? Like, who is she? And I just played like, well, she's a supernatural podcaster, and I was like, and then she watched like X-Files like 5 times in a row, like the whole thing, and he's like, oh my god. And I'm like, she just liked it, man. I don't know what to tell you.
I love how weird that is to most people, but like, I don't know if it's the neurodivergence or like the fact that I work from home and like, it's nice to have something in the background, but like, I don't know. That's just how I watch shows.
Yeah. I think it's just a slight difference because, like me and Autumn, like we sit down and watch like a couple of episodes of TV, right? Like we're not sitting there binging the whole thing. And, sometimes we'll do that in like an afternoon or something, but like very rarely. So it's just one of those things I never really get to binge anything. In fact, the last time I binged something was Our Flag Means Death, because Autumn was out of town, and I was just like, well, I'm just going to watch all of these. I'm just going to sit here and watch the entire first season so I can listen to your podcast about it.
Yes, our podcast. Did you see that Katie went to GalaxyCon?
I did. I saw those pictures on B-Ski this yesterday.
On she gave them soup.
It's so good. It's so good.
They so deserved soup. Oh, I was so happy about it.
Did you watch Taiki Watiti did a version of Time Bandits on Apple TV. Have you seen any of that? Are you a Time Bandits fan at all?
No, I haven't seen that.
It's got some of the same kind of Taikio humor that all of his shows have. But Time Bandits was an old 80s movie it's still really, really good. Like, it holds up today. Where some people steal a map of time, and the Supreme Being is chasing them down through the universe or whatever. And this one's very much the same thing. They just kind of partner up with a young lad from the UK, and they start going through different timelines and stuff, and it's really cute and fun. So,
oh, okay, all right, good to know. Time Bandits.
Does 11-year-old watch much TV? Like, do you guys watch TV together? I know y'all were doing Marvel and Lord of the Rings for a while, but
yeah, he watches TV. He's currently going through One Piece, actually.
Oh, geez. Okay, yeah, that's thousands.
Yeah, well, there you go. So he's always very proudly telling me how many episodes there are in One Piece, and I'm just like,
it's too many episodes.
That's too many. That's too many slices.
It's too many. Too many. I cannot handle this amount of content.
Yeah, I know. I have, I can handle the Supernaturals and the X-Files of this world, but 1,500 episodes, that's a lot. That would take me some time, and that's saying a lot.
I know a couple of people that have done the whole thing, which tells you about the kind of crew that I hang out with. Bunch of nerds, am I right? But I know a couple of people that have finished the whole thing, and I mean, they genuinely like it. Like, they even like the live action version that was on Netflix, which is unusual. So.
Oh, the live action. Oh, yes, I've heard about that. Oh, anyway, he's still going through the original
the anime
series. Yeah. What else does he watch right now? He's watching that animation that Drew loves. I can't remember what it is.
Arcane?
Gravity Falls?
Oh, Gravity Falls. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So he's watching that. And he's also devastated about the fact that they're going to retire Ash Ketchum very soon in Pokemon. So that's the thing that's happening in his life, and he's very sad about it. And I'm like, I know endings are hard, my love.
Some things have to end. They'll bring him back. Don't worry. They always will.
Yes. He was like, they might bring it back, but they won't bring back Ash, and that's just so sad because that's the character that I grew up with. And I'm like, well, technically me too, but
I remember being 16, 17 when the Pokemon craze started, and just being confused by whatever was happening. But now it's everybody now. Chris is playing the card game that's on the iPhone. They have an actual card game where you collect the Pokemons and stuff, just like you would in real life, except it's all digital stuff. So,
like Pokemon Go?
No. This is the card game. The game was originally kind of based around collecting all of these different cards and animals and whatnot. Yeah.
You can tell how much I know about this, right?
Yeah. It's okay.
Sorry.
I'm pushing beyond the boundaries of my knowledge of Pokemon right now. There's probably 3 other facts that I know, and I'm going to be in the wind. So
maybe we could do another special where it's teaching Mary the internet.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's what Pokemon is. Chris can just walk us through Pokemon.
Yes. I would love for Chris to walk me through Pokemon. I think that would be great.
I think it would be a good time for everybody. I think that would be
my tattoo artist is a Pokemon fan, and she she'll draw quote unquote realistic Pokemon, and it's so beautiful. And I saw her Flash, because it's all her Flash stuff that she has, and I'm like, why do I so badly want a Pokemon tattooed into my body?
How did you make this look so good?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, when you posted your new tattoo. You tagged the artist. I went to her Instagram page and was very, very impressed with all of her tattoo ink and art and everything. So
she's amazing, truly. And she's so funny. Yeah, it's always a good time hanging out in her basement, you know.
Sure, not a shop, but a basement. All right, it's not weird.
She used to have a shop, but although anyway, I don't think she ever worked in a shop, or she did at one point, but she works for herself now, and she's always worked from home. Just because it just made more sense. Her boyfriend is also home. And so it's kind of, I think she feels better that way, a bit more protected perhaps. I don't know. And they moved into a house recently, and now she has the basement set up as her shop. And it's it's nice. Really nice.
I grew up with a family that just were all tattooed up. My stepdad had tattoos all over his body. My mom had a bunch of tattoos. My eldest sister, has tattoos. In fact, she got one just recently when she was house sitting for us when we were on our vacation, because her dog had just passed the week before, so she had a in memoriam kind of dog tattoo. But for me, I don't know what it is. I got one tattoo and I was like, I'm done. I'm good.
But that's fine too. That's probably the best case scenario, to be honest with you. Getting one and being like, nah, that's not for me. I'm good. I'm fine.
But I do for cancer reasons, for some reason, I've kind of wanted to get another tattoo, but there's nothing. Yeah. It's one of those things where I'm like, am I buying this to make me happy, or am I buying it because it's going to make me think that I'll be happy? What is the driving force behind this? Because I don't necessarily think I want a tattoo. I just think I want something that I can control to put on my body somehow. I think that's the thing. Not to get super real. Sorry, I've had too much coffee this morning.
No. I mean, that's going to be a lot of that in this episode.
It's true. It's just been it's just been weird to have. I literally got it on my 18th birthday, right? So it's been close to 30 years now. And I'm for the first time, I'm another tattoo 30 years later. Why not?
My mom got a tattoo, her first one, actually, after she finished radiation.
Yeah.
So I feel that, wanting control over your body. And the reality, I think, is I think we tend to overthink tattoos a lot, because they are permanent, which is probably not a bad thing, right? Some people should probably think a little bit more about the tattoos that they get, but I think sometimes we tend to overthink tattoos, and it's well, it's fine. I don't know. But I think that only comes when you start having a lot of them, which is kind of where I am at this point. Because I am the most, I guess, tatted up person in my family. My brother has one tattoo. My sister has one tattoo. My mom now has one, but she never had one when we were growing up. My dad doesn't. My stepmom doesn't. My other brother doesn't. And it's actually kind of funny because I literally have every single limb tattooed at this point.
Nice. One on every limb. Got collecting the whole set.
I'm officially at more than one now.
Nice. Extremely nice. Extremely good.
So yeah, I think my family doesn't get it, which is fine. I don't mind, but they my animal tattoos.
You don't get the "oh my god, you're ruining your body" kind of feedback from your people, though, right?
I did, absolutely, okay. But that was a while ago.
That sucks.
That was when I was much younger, in my early 20s. Now people don't really care. Plus, my family is quite fat phobic, and I am not extremely thin at the moment. So they're well, whatever. Her body's already ruined, so it doesn't matter if she puts tattoos on it. No,
be nicer to my friend. What are you talking about? No, absolutely not.
Oh, listen, that's true. I'm saying it as a laugh, but it's pretty violent when you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely, it is. Yeah, I don't like that at all.
Yeah, my family's pretty fat phobic. I always tell my sister, the only reason why my dad bought me my fancy running watch is because I think he's hoping that it's going to make me lose weight.
Buying an Autumn vacuum cleaner, hint, hint.
Yes, that's exactly what I did. I'm really happy about it because I got a fancy running watch from it, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and you use it all the time. I see you using it when you're running all the time.
Exactly. So. And it does give my dad and I something to bond over because I show him hey, this is my stats. This is what I did, and blah blah blah. And so I think he is happy to see that it's getting used, even though the scale hasn't moved.
Autumn was like, for this Boston trip that we're planning, she was like, that's just enough time to lose a little bit of weight. And I'm like, Autumn, you are fucking gorgeous. What are you talking about? And she's like, no, I just need to. And I'm like, I disagree highly. Like, that's not the thing.
I love how we have like numbers in our head, right?
Right?
It's like,
Like
oh, no,
10
no.
like,
No, I have to lose this. I have to lose that. Like, no. Anyway, I'm finally at a point in my life where I have like a much better relationship with my body and my weight and my eating and my everything. So I'm like,
Good.
like I don't really want, plus I have a full wardrobe of clothes. I'm like, I don't really want to lose weight, to be honest with you.
That's been my issue. Cause since the surgery, I've lost so much weight. I have to wear a belt or else I'm just like my pants are literally falling down my body. And all of my shirts, like 90% of my shirts are either from like podcasters or from rappers. Like they're just random merch that I buy. And I'm kind of a size down now, so they're all like billowy on me. So I look like I'm basically walking around like a 90s Jinko ad at this point in my life. Like I have to zip it up a little bit to tighten it up because it's not good right now.
Although you are at least not wearing extremely slim fit pants, which workwear guy would not be happy about.
Yes. I do a lot of creeping on the workwear guy stuff.
I know, me too. I love him.
Although, man, he posts some stuff like, "Oh, I really like this from this." And so I'll click on it and it's like an $800 jacket. And I'm like, I know what you're going for here. Like this jacket would probably last me 40 years. Like I get the investment, but I just, oh boy, I can't bring myself to pay $800 for a jacket. Like I'm just broken inside that way. Like there's just no way that I can do it. So
no. I completely get it. I get it. It's, it's a lot.
It's a good looking jacket though. It's a real good looking jacket. So
yeah, there you go. There you go. Are we ready to talk about cannibals and sad stuff?
I am. I'm reading this comment on our Discord from Nell. Mary talking about styling a dead body like a buffet makes me think of Neil Patrick Harris, Amy Winehouse thing. I don't know what that is. Do you know of a connection between Neil Patrick Harris and...
but that's yes. Oh, I know what that is. That's kind of the reason why people don't love Neil Patrick Harris as much as they used to.
Oh my God, is this true?
Yes, it's true. It's shocking, isn't it?
Yeah, like the quote is, "It's a detailed edible corpse." What the fuck, Neil Patrick Harris?
Yeah.
Fortunately, the BuzzFeed article is just beautiful pictures of Amy Winehouse, so I don't have to see that. But also gross, super gross. Yeah, that's
super gross. I don't think there are photos of it, but like, it's...
yeah.
Okay,
well,
great.
On that note, let's talk about Hannibal.
Okay, all right, let's do it. Fluffy, have you decided that it's now the time to talk about your feelings?
And the conclusion that I've drawn is that you are